knew he was very controlling, but I did not know to the extent of the abuse that was going on until way later when she did finally tell me. I knew that when I went over there to her home, I could go anytime I want. It was my sister. He was working nights and driving a truck, and he would sleep in the basement in Victoria. When they lived in Victoria, they lived there a long time, and Jeremiah was still a baby there, toddler. When they lived in Victoria, he would sleep in the basement during the day. And when I came over, she had to silence me and said, "Shh, if I wake up Jay, he's gonna go off on me." And so we had to talk outside, or we'd go for a drive or a walk, because she said even walking on the floor, he would come up and go off on her. I didn't know what go off meant. So they got married and Jeremiah was born. So 4 months after they got married, I always went over and took Jeremiah home with me for the weekends and on Friday through Sunday. And I went over and she had a black eye. And I said, "What happened?" She said she was changing Jeremiah's diaper and he kicked her. First of all, he didn't have shoes. He was 4 months old. A little baby kick wouldn't give her black eye. Jay was in the kitchen. I went over and I said, "If I ever see any marks on my sister, I will report you to the police." Unbeknownst to me, 5 years before he murdered her and isolated her from us, she had told me that that's when he started punching her in the head. And she showed me, like a boxer, 1, 2, 1, 2, so that there wouldn't be marks on her.
So Jeremiah, how would you describe your parents' relationship when you were a young boy?
Hot and cold. I mean, it was either they were great or they weren't, and there was really no in between. Dad would he'd come in with a smile on his face, and then 5 minutes later, he would be screaming at the top of his lungs, throwing things, just up in people's faces. Just not good. I mean, we all lived on eggshells.
So did you see Jay hitting your mom?
Many times.
Okay.
Many times.
Okay. Did you ever try to tell anyone? Did you even, as a young person, even understand what that all meant?
The best thing I could say would be when I was very little, like 8, 9 years old. 7 maybe, I don't even know. We had a cop that lived across the street and one house to the north of us. Anytime Dad would get on his big tirades, I would open my window and scream at the top of my lungs, hoping someone would come help. One night, that cop shows up in his underwear and a white wife beater and beats on the door, and I figured we were finally getting some help, and he comes in, or Dad answers the door, and he says, "Jay, get this over in a hurry. I've got to get some sleep. I got to work in the morning." So after that, I figured it was normal. Thought that's what everybody went through. I was terrified of him, always. Absolutely terrified. I mean, I got beat profusely because the toilet lid fell down when he was sleeping and I went to go to the bathroom as a child. After that, it was so terrifying that I would take water bottles, milk jugs, things like that to pee in my room because I was too afraid to leave. If I got in any trouble, if I forgot to do a chore or anything like that, I would be grounded for 2 weeks or a month or 2 months or God knows how long. And I'd have to just hide in my room the entire time. I couldn't come out, and if I did, I had to be church mouse quiet because otherwise that shoe could fall at any minute. I remember seeing Sparky fly across the room and into the wall. I remember him kicking that dog like it was a football. I remember him doing the same thing with some of the cats. I remember him punching the collies. Lots of things. I mean, if there's that, there's the food aspect of it, If there was something in the fridge that had been there for 3 days and I went to finish it off or finished it off and he wanted it that night, I got my ass beat. I was told that I was worthless, that I was, that I should have been aborted, that he would kill me and make one that looked just like me. Now, as an adult, we all know, right? That's not a thing. But as a little kid, after seeing the things my dad did, it scared the hell out of me. He said the same things to my mom. He said they'd kill her. He said all sorts of things. There was a time where, after I moved out, that my mom showed up to my house and she said that dad was hitting her. And I said, then leave. And she goes, where am I gonna go? He's got all the money, because he controlled everything. And I said, come live with me. You know, I got a house, come here. She goes, no, your dad will come over and it'll be bad. I was like, he's not gonna do anything here. I said, fuck, Mom, why didn't you leave when I was a kid? Get me out of this, get us out of this. And she goes, you wouldn't understand. I said, well, then make me. She looked at me and she said, your dad told me that if I ever tried to leave, he would gut you like a deer in front of me just so I could watch you die before he killed me.
What did you feel when she said that to you?
I was pretty taken back. I mean, I knew my dad never liked me, for the most part, unless I was useful for something. But I didn't know that he would kill me, or that was a thing that he would say to her until that day.
And how old were you then?
19.
19. That's still pretty young to hear something like that about your dad. So how was your dad controlling of both you and your mom? You mentioned money a little bit.
Money was a huge thing for him, and it always was. Now granted, my mom, I know she had a spending problem, but I think it was mainly because she was never allowed to have money to figure out how to balance a budget. He would, if she was working, she would come home and he would look at her and said, hand it over when she'd get paid. You know, she was waiting tables at Gutierrez's at the time, or Carlos, or wherever. As soon as she got home, it was handed over, and she'd have to hand over her tips. If she got her paycheck, hand it over. She was never allowed to have anything of her own. Like I said, I know she had a spending problem, but when you're not allowed to have any money, you don't know how to budget.